We're going to dive in today of why just talking about performance isn't going to cut it anymore. Coming from a high performance coach. Listen to this episode today where I'm going to talk about the difference between performance and potential and what you need to be doing and what you need to be doing in your work, with your teams, with your business to ensure that you don't get stuck in what was and what is, and you can look at what could be. All right, friends, let's dive this conversation. I'm cozying up here to have this conversation on something that I've been thinking about and focusing on and curious about for a while now. And I actually just got done. I'm recording this right after I just got done delivering a keynote. I was the closing speaker for a conference, and I was giving my signature talk, Unboxing Potential. And I've been I've been giving this talk for years, but it's always evolving and iterating to get even more honed in, more specific. And one of the things that I've been really diving into that I want to share with you today is this whole idea of performance versus potential and what the difference is. And why I've been thinking about this is for a few reasons. First of all, as a high performance coach, performance is really important. Helping people to perform at their best. It's what my job is, whether that's individually through coaching, if I'm working with a business owner, or if I'm working with a manager or with an executive or with a leader, helping them to perform, helping their teams to perform at their best. And so performance is really important. And also I love this idea of potential, and potential is something that I really talk about. And there's similarities between performance and potential, but differences. And so I want to talk a little bit about what this could mean for you. And so when we think of performance, and this is one of the things I was talking about in my keynote today, is when you look at performance, a lot of the times we are looking at that. Either you individually, like, am I performing? You're measuring things, you're assessing, especially in teams or your business or organizations where you're looking at performance. And so when we think of performance, it's observable, measurable behaviors or results for things. So it is, what we can see in action. And so how I really define it is what was and what is, meaning usually it's a past indicator of our performance, like how have we been performing, how have we been doing. Really important to know the numbers and how are we doing now. And especially in organizations, some of the things that we look at is like, who are the high performers? If you're someone who's a leader in an organization, there's the 9 box and the grid and how we figure out succession planning. And oftentimes we look at who are our high performers. Nothing wrong with that approach. And also, one of the things that I'm starting to see, having this sort of insider view into the brains and the minds and the operations of leaders and teams and organizations, is sometimes that focus on performance, on what we have been doing or what our teams or what our people have been doing and what they're doing now, can actually be the thing that keeps us stuck in the box, because we are looking at the past and the present, which is important, and sometimes we forget to look at what can be. What I'm noticing is this whole idea of performance isn't always the exact indicator for potential. And we see that actually a lot. I see that a lot when I'm working with newer leaders who they were the high performers. They're really good at doing, but they either didn't get the training to be a leader and to think strategically and to have vision and to be an actual people leader. They either didn't get the training or they really don't have the skill set. They didn't necessarily have the potential. They might have been a performer, but they don't necessarily have the potential to get to that. And not to say that you can't be taught that. Of course, I think most things can be taught, but do they really want to? Because that's a big contributor to it. And also, do they have the skill set? Is that part of their track? And so I also see that people or teams or organizations can get stuck in this box by just focusing on their performance. And we're seeing this be a bigger issue because now more than ever, we individually and as teams and as organizations, we need to be focused on what could be. The possibility. We need to be thinking outside the box to future-proof our leadership, our workforces, our businesses. As a business owner right now, the way that what got you here doesn't necessarily get me there, right? That whole idea. When I look at my performance, yes, I have been I would say, quote unquote, high performer of my past, of what I did, what I do now. That's not necessarily going to be the thing that gets me to where I need to go, because I need to evolve. I need to think differently as a business owner, as business changes. So if you are either a business owner, if you're a leader, if you're an organization, to future-proof your work, your team, your organization, we can't just talk about performance. That can't be the only part of the conversation. We need to look at potential. When I think of potential, I think of what's next. right? If we were to give the people on our team the right opportunities, the right connections, if we were to cultivate it, if the right development and the right environment, what could be possible? So if performance is what was and what is, potential is what can be. And this conversation is so important, again, especially now, given that we are all being challenged to think differently, to work differently because of the way that things change. I mean, with AI, that is a big part of the conversation, but also just what do we need? I'm actually getting ready to head to Alaska soon. I'm so excited. I'll be doing a podcast recording on a recap of that event, but we're headed to Alaska. We're making it part of a family vacation, and also I'm speaking at an HR conference. And one of the things I'm speaking on is closing the leadership skills gap and making more resilient workforce. And I've been pulling together a lot of data and studies and research to share with these leaders at this conference. And a lot of what I'm seeing and what I have been seeing as I talk to organizations about what we need from people is things like resilience, agility, emotional intelligence, like these skills that we need from people. We need to be thinking differently. And so I've always been obsessed with this idea of potential. And I know I've talked about this before, but even going back to some of the research and some of the things that I had been trained on through positive intelligence, they had done a study with over 500,000 CEOs and their teams, Stanford students, elite athletes, and what they found is that 80% of people fall below the mental fitness needed to reach peak performance and potential, which means only 20% of people are reaching their potential. And I shared this in my keynote today. I got a couple chuckles, but I said, as someone who does this for a living, I'm like, challenge accepted. What do we need to do to help people to really live into that potential? And I shared this quote, that potential is possibility waiting to be activated. What do you need to be doing to not just focus on the metrics of what you've done and what you're doing now, but what do you need to do to get to that next level, whether it's a personal goal or a professional goal? And when we think of potential, it's challenging yourself. It's first of all needing to pick, where do I even want to go from here? And I think that sometimes too is it's a roadblock for people. It's what keeps us stuck in the box, is because we are just looking at maybe what our path has been or what we thought it was going to be. And maybe we're feeling internal conflict because we want it to be something else. Or maybe it's what other people have shown for us or what they have showed us. And we're not thinking of what could be possible. Even just asking that question actually activates a different part of your brain. So you need to really think about, where do I want to go? Where do we want to go? Where do I want to go individually? If you run a team or a business, where are we headed the next year, the next 5 years? And then I always talk about, you need to think about, what do I need to put in place to allow me to do that? You need to plan for the things that aren't going to go right? And one of the things I say is, if you're waiting for the fear not to be there, you're going to be waiting forever, because anytime you try to do something new, something different, that fear is going to be there. And I say, don't let fear drive the car. It can come along and be like, hey, come with me, but you drive the car, and the fear is in the passenger seat or in the back, right? Because what are you not even trying because of that fear of failure? What are you not even trying because of that fear of failure? Because that will be another one of those things, is if we're only looking at our past performance and now we're being challenged to do something that's really outside of anything we've ever done, we don't have anything to go off of. And we're like, well, I don't feel confident doing this because I haven't done it. When really we need to change our thinking, and we need to really go, well, look at how successfully I've been able to navigate challenge and change before. If I've been able to do that, I can do it now. What else is possible for me? And so really opening up that idea of potential, and what is your potential? What's the potential of your team? What's the potential of, the organization, of where your business can go, of where your company can go, where you can go? And I just feel like this idea of potential, it's just one of those really eye-opening, and those things that just opens up your own, I always say, peripherals. It gets us out of the tunnel vision of what we're seeing, and it gets us more into what else could we do. And I had shared this with a client before about, because I've been talking about getting out of the box for a long time and things I've done, what I see my clients do. And I had shared this with a one-on-one client before, one of my executive clients. And I remember him saying, he's like, oh, I love this idea of, out of the box thinking. And he came to one of our next one-on-one coaching sessions and he said, Julie, I changed it. And he's like, I put a little sticky note up by my computer and I changed it not to what would it look like to think outside the box, but he said, think like there is no box. And I loved that. And I was like, I shared that with the audience today too. I'm like, I absolutely love that because that's really big, open peripheral thinking. What could be possible if you were to if you were to cultivate in yourself, give yourself the right opportunities, the right environment? What could be possible for you? What could be next? That's potential. It's where could you go? And how can we really use that to help us to think differently in this time that's demanding us to think differently? It's a muscle that we need to flex to really be thinking about that potential versus just that performance. So I'm so curious. I would love to hear your thoughts on this conversation. Please send me a message after you listen to this episode. And if this got you thinking differently, and I want to challenge you to not just look at what was and what is, but also look at what could be.